Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast, the New Year's edition. Welcome to 2024. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com. I talk about this all the time. Go there. Everything's there. Send me an email if you got a topic or a guest you'd like us to have on the podcast. And all that stuff you can do at hikingbob.com. With me today is my co-host for the second week in a row. I think this might be almost a record, Kevin. Is my co-host, Wild Wessendorf. You last heard him last week when we talked about Christmas, and that's because we did a lot of podcasts with The Give. Kevin, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
And I hope you had a good, safe New Year's celebration. You didn't get didn't indulge too much in the spirits other than the good times type of thing. I know I didn't. I'm far too old for those kind of shenanigans. It's interesting. We're still down in Phoenix. We're coming home tomorrow. But what's interesting is fireworks are like Colorado, generally illegal. But there's 2 times a year when you can have fireworks and pretty much do what you want. Christmas and New Year's and the 4th of July. I'm not sure why Christmas, but it sounds like we're on a bombing range down here this time of the year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not here in July because, well, it's 100 bazillion degrees. It's too damn hot. But yeah, it sounds like and unfortunately, my poor dog, who does not do well with noise. And I see a lot of things on different social media things like, don't blow up fireworks around your house. My dog is scared of them. I kind of know how those people feel because I have a dog that's scared of that. But you can't really ask your neighbors to not do that. I mean, you can ask them, but you can't really expect it. They're allowed to do that. They want to have their own fun. I think it's kind of up to me. We have ways of calming Cole down and some CBD stuff we give him that calms him down, takes away his anxiety, or we'll go someplace with them or something like that. Or I literally the other night, last week actually, he crawled into the closet to get away, and I actually crawled in there with him and just laid down with him. At night, kind of slept in there for a couple hours so things calm down just to keep him calm. You do the things you got to do. But it's really kind of unreasonable to ask all your neighbors or anywhere that within earshot to not do fireworks. They're allowed to do it. And, we want to think if they were breaking the law, but they're not. So anyway, enough of that stuff.
Yeah, because I've got friends with PTSD from gun violence or being in the military and stuff. And I've never seen them make demands like, no one better shoot off fireworks. Like, it really affects me. You just have to do what you have to do for that 1 or 2 days a year.
Right. I thought that I'm not unsympathetic to like people like, your friends too. I'm not unsympathetic to people who have dogs like I do. But can you really demand that people stop doing stuff that they want to have their enjoyment? I mean, it kind of gets down to me telling you can't enjoy something because I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
If they were breaking the law, that'd be one thing, but they're doing something they're legally allowed to do. I think it's a little unreasonable to demand it. In any case, we had a good time for New Year's, very quiet. Mom's flying out. She's flying back home to New Jersey. She spent New Year's with us. Last year, she went home before New Year's. This year, she stayed till afterwards, so she's going home. I hit my 800-mile goal. We'll talk about that a little later on. But in any case, let's talk about, everybody does this, so we're going to be kind of cliche on this, but let's talk about how the previous year, how 2023 went. Kevin, you kind of touched on it a little bit in last week's podcast, the Christmas podcast, but you and I both didn't quite do all the things we wanted to do because of things. Me medically, and you unfortunately got a car that decided that the week you needed it was going to be the week it was going to end up in the shop. So you want to kind of talk about what you missed out on and then how you plan on moving forward in 24?
Well, like I touched on last week, I had originally planned a trip to North New Mexico because back in 2021, I mostly explored the southern part of the state, which is beautiful. But the northern part's a little bit of a different landscape, and I definitely want to go back to Los Alamos because of all the Oppenheimer stuff with the movie. I just want to go to the museum and all that because I just find the whole Manhattan Project story fascinating. Plus, there's a lot of gorgeous hikes around there that I got a taste of back in 2021. So my goal is to do that trip. I really, really want to explore that part. Thinking a hint for my second road trip of the year, because you know me, I'm huge on those road trips. A hint I'll give you, because I haven't mapped everything out yet, is Northwest, but not the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay.
So
Now you're teasing me. That's all right. You got a plan though. So you want to do northern New Mexico again. You want to do northwest, and I'm doing that in air quotes because you're keeping that a secret. That's okay. Any other places you want to hit? Like last year, I kind of went to the East Coast, which I lived there, but didn't go back there for shooting so much or hiking so much. So any other places you want to do that you haven't been to or haven't been to in a while or anything like that?
I actually, when I went to Charleston and Savannah last year, and I know this can be a shocking thing to hear, but it was my first road trip, not road trip. We flew out there, but it was my first trip in many, many years where I didn't focus the trip on hiking. And it was actually really nice just to be a tourist and go to all the attractions and museums. And I definitely want to take the Amtrak train called the California Zephyr.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take that out west, which it ends in the Bay Area, and just find stuff to do out there. I don't want to drive out there, but maybe see the the redwoods and such. And I'll still do a little bit of hiking because there are a lot of trails out there. But I kind of just want to do the tourist thing again.
Nothing wrong with that. That sounds like a great idea, actually. And you get to combine a couple things. There are some nice hikings up in the Muir Woods and stuff like that that you can do. It's been a long time since I've been up there, but yeah, you can kind of do both out there. There's definitely plenty of that to do. So that sounds like a great idea. I've always wanted to do one of those long Amtrak train
Oh,
rides.
it's so nice. It's so I've gone out east to Chicago twice on Amtrak, and they time it to where when you're going out east, it starts at night because you're going into the Midwest and all you're gonna see is corn everywhere.
Hmm.
But when you go out west, they time it to where that starts early in the morning. So you get to go through the canyons and the Rockies and see all the views. But it's comfortable. The seats are big and wide. They recline almost all the way back. So like I brought a blanket and a pillow and like I just slept entire time. It was way better than trying to sleep on an airplane. And I love the fact that you can get up and walk around the cars of the train. If there's an actual restaurant car, there's a viewing car, so you can kind of get up and stretch your legs and be like, okay, I want to change of environment, so I'm going to go into the viewing car and just relax there. Yeah, it's just nice.
One of these days I'll try that. I wouldn't mind taking one that goes like through. Actually, I wouldn't mind taking the one that is it the California Zephyr that runs from Denver through Glenwood Springs?
Oh
Or is
yeah, yeah.
that? Yeah, I would even just to do that one to Denver to Glenwood Springs and back,
Oh,
or
that'd be nice.
Denver to Salt Lake City and back, just to go through Glenwood Canyon on that train. I think would be a blast. Just to run there and back would be a fun ride.
Every time I drive through Glenwood Canyon, I'm almost always crashing the car because it's so beautiful, and that I'm trying to safely sightsee too,
Yeah,
but I'm always the one driving, so it's frustrating.
driving there on I-70, what a amazing marvel of modern engineering. It took 20 years or so to build a highway through there, and just how much all the new things they developed just to be able to build a highway through there. I guess and it's so narrow that the train runs right there, so you actually a different perspective. You're just looking at the highway and see how they built that on there and the different layers of the decks and stuff like that. Just would have
Oh,
to
it's
be pretty
cool.
cool. Yeah, it'd have to be a lot of fun. Well, cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a really good trip. What I'd like to do, as I spent this year, last year, we're in 24 now. I'm going to be writing 23 on checks for about another week. In 23, obviously, as we found out, I came pretty close to not making my 800 miles. Barely got it in. We'll talk more about the details of that at a later podcast. But because of that, I didn't get to do a lot of long hikes that I like to do because I was hurt, and it got to be painful to do more than 6, 7, 8 miles at a time. Eventually, toward the end of the year, I started to pick that back up. So I didn't get the chance to do a lot of stuff I want to, but a couple of things I do want to do this year. Number one, and I think I'm going to drag you on this with me, is later this year, we need to hike to the top of Fisher's Peak, down at Fisher's
Oh
Peak State
yes.
Park. All day, it's like 16 miles round trip. I've done part of it as we did with the podcast. I hiked up there with the park manager and some other folks from CPW. We only did the last part of it because the trail in between wasn't done yet, but would not mind doing that. I am going to North Carolina, to Pisgah National Forest in June, and I'm going to plan on doing a little hiking there, but that's mostly a photography related trip. but I do want to do that. I want to get out a little bit more, take some more of these week-long trips that have been a little difficult for me to do in the last couple of years. I have a friend who just moved from Colorado Springs over to the Western Slope, and she's killing me with pictures of all these hikes and stuff that she's doing out there. So I may spend a little time on the Western Slope and maybe drag the camper out there and the dog and everybody and spend some time. Because amazingly, for as long as I've lived in Colorado, other than maybe Colorado National Monument and the McGinnis Wilderness area near Grand Junction, I haven't spent that much time on the Western Slope. And I know I'm missing out on a lot of
Oh yeah.
good stuff out there. So maybe I'll spend some more time on the Western Slope. I think as far as 23 went, the podcast, we had some really great podcasts. You were a part of a lot of that, but you know, some of the more popular ones, the podcast I did with the Forest Service law enforcement, A, I interviewed them, and then B,
That's right.
the ride along with them was hugely popular. People really liked that one. They thought that was really great podcast. Hiking up, as we talked, hiking up to Fisher's Peak with the park manager at Fisher's Peak State Park was very popular. People were very excited about that. It's kind of open now, but the problem is that it's 16 miles and it's hard to do it all in one day because you have to be out of there because they closed the park. Plus, you don't want to do that in the dark. You can cycle up a ways to it on a bike, and then you have to hike the rest. That is one way to kind of get it all done in one day this time of the year. But I think the best thing is to wait till August, because then it closes in the spring and summer because there's falcons that nest up there. So they have to close a lot of that trail. So it's closed to the summit, which is why I keep saying August, September is actually the time to do it. I think August, September would be a great time to do it anyway. Long days, weather's nice, would be a good time of the year to do that. So Kevin, I'm going to drag you up there. I don't think I'll have to talk you into it much. I think you'll probably be pretty eager to go. You and I have hiked down there before and loved it. So we can do that. But we had a good year with podcasts this year. We won that award.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
Best of award. What am I forgetting that? I mean, we won an award for our podcast. I mean, we did a lot of really, really good stuff. On the downside, The Independent, where I wrote, has had some serious ups and downs. And as of this podcast, they are suspending operations, hopefully just for the month of January. Fingers crossed they come back. It's looking a little dicey, but you know, I spent a lot of years writing there and really excited about the time I spent there. I think you're going to see some news about that coming out. I hope they come out of it. They stopped my column for a while, brought it back from weekly to monthly, then stopped it altogether. Then they announced they're stopping publication entirely at the end of 23, and they're not being too committal on when they plan to start up, but they're hoping it's only about a month they're going to be off. Unfortunately, our friends at Trails End Tap Room, which have a place in Colorado Springs and Monument, great people there, donate a lot of money to nonprofits, had to slow down. They had bought the old Mason Jar restaurant and then had to close their Colorado Springs place until spring at least. I'm hoping they can come out of it. The good thing is their Monument place, which is much smaller, that one's still open. So it's been a tough time for a lot of places here in Colorado Springs in the Pikes Peak region, but I'm hoping everybody comes out of it. So we had a good podcast year. We've hit 300. I think this one's going to be like 387, 88, 89. I don't know what it is. It's going to be a lot. So let's talk about what's coming up with this podcast. I will tell people that this podcast about halfway through the year is going to change. It's not going to be like you've been accustomed to for the past 7 years, however long it's been. 8 years.
I can't believe
It's been a long time.
It still surprises me that it's been at least 7 years.
Yeah, you know, we're edging close to 400 straight weeks of doing podcasts. By any metric, that is a long time to do podcasts. So that is a long time, and we are going to change things up a little bit. I'm not sure, and I'm not deliberately trying to be vague because I'm still working on the details, but it's going to be different than it's been if you've been listening to it for a while. It's going to be, so our first podcast was August 3rd, 2016, if you can believe that, Kevin.
Man.
And you joined me. That was the first episode. I had some guests. And let's see, you joined me on the 9th episode. You came in on November 28th, 2016.
Okay.
So coming up on 8 years of doing the podcast. So things are going to change. This podcast that we're doing right now is going to be number 387. 387 weeks of doing podcasts. So things are going to change a little bit. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. It's going to look a little different, or it won't. I don't know. But I will tell people that, and Kevin, I know you appreciate this, and people who've done podcasts know this. Doing a podcast is not as easy as it looks. There's a lot of work to getting guests, scheduling, meeting people, finding people to talk to, finding interesting people to talk to. The reason why we have guests on here is I know that I'm not all that interesting. If I didn't have Kevin on here, I probably would have lost most of you all 300 episodes ago. So it's a lot of work, and a lot of things are going to change this year. I've been on the TOPS working committee at the city for almost 6 years now, and I will have to leave there because we are, even though we're not elected officials, we are term limited just like elected officials are because we are appointed by city government. So I will be leaving the TOPS working committee this coming fall. I have to leave. It's time to go. And I've been asked if I want to go to be on another committee somewhere else, and I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. My term at the Friends of Cheyenne Mountain State Park will be running out this year, and I'm on my second term there. And I don't have to leave there, but I think it's time for me to move on. So all of that, if you're paying attention here to what's been going on the last few years, there's a lot of stuff I still want to do, and I see this year as maybe being a time when I free up some time, and maybe we'll do some more things. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I know, Kevin, we've talked about you doing some interviews on here. Are you still thinking that's something you want to do in the next couple of months?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So maybe this will become the Hiking with Kevin podcast or something. I don't know. But things are going to change. And they just, things have to change. So things are going to be a little different this coming year. I do want to get in some more trips. Nat Geo has done some pretty cool things with their excursions that I've loved going on. I've been on a bunch of those, but they've also gotten a lot more expensive. And one of my rules for going on those trips is I don't go on any of those unless I can pay for them in full in cash. I don't go in any debt to go on them. So it's taken me longer to build up my cash fund to go on those trips. So I don't know if I'll squeeze in a Nat Geo trip this year, but I would like to. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I don't think that'll happen this year, but it may happen in the next couple of years. Interesting note, Kevin. Did you know that there's no dangerous animals to humans in New Zealand?
Really?
None at all.
But they're right next to Australia, so
They might as well be, well, they're technically a continent apart. Yeah, in Australia, everything will kill you. In New Zealand, there's no snakes that'll kill you. There's no spiders that'll kill you. There's no wild animals that'll kill you. There's no like mountain lions or anything like that that'll kill you. I heard this on a podcast with a New Zealander. I'm saying he must be working for the tourist people or something. But I looked it up. There's really nothing that'll kill you other than other people probably in New Zealand. It's nothing at all like Australia, which they may be neighbors, but I guess they're nothing alike. I thought that was interesting. There are some spiders, I guess, in New Zealand that if they bite you will hurt, but they're not going to kill you. Interesting thing. Makes me really want to go to New Zealand even more. Because, why not, right? So I don't know, Kevin, that's kind of, last year was a good year. 23 was a good year for both of us, I think. Despite the little setbacks we had, I think we have some stuff coming up. And I'm kind of looking forward to the rest of this year and, what it has in store for us. I want to get out. I know people probably are listening to this going, all I do is go out hiking, but I've had a lot of other obligations, and they're obligations I put on myself, so I'm not blaming anybody, that sometimes keep me from going as many places or as far away as I'd like to without way planning in advance. I'm hoping that this year starts a time when I can do more spur of the moment stuff and disappear for a week or two without having to worry about what meeting or something I'm in conflict with. Again, I'm not complaining. The time I've spent with different committees and groups has been wonderful and enriching. And I will tell people, if you think you know how things are run when it comes to parks and things like that, until you join a committee or become a member of a friends group, you really don't know until you get involved, and then you get the nuts and bolts and nitty gritty of things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Plus, you basically retired and then made yourself do more work.
That's true. Maybe it's time for my second. I'm going to be Medicare age this year, Kevin, for crying out loud. Maybe it's time for me to
Oh,
take another
wow.
retirement. That's a positive thing. I'm going to go on Medicare. It's probably better insurance than the stuff I have now that I'm paying a fortune for that doesn't pay for a damn thing. I love my insurance company, but geez, it'd be nice if they paid for something every once in a while. So I think there's going to be some changes this year, I think. And I'm not being vague for the point of just being vague and hanging people on. I'm still working on the details, and you'll see them all coming up. Probably not for a couple more months, but things are definitely going to change.
It makes
Kevin,
sense.
you need to get a vehicle. Doesn't have to go in the shop for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kidding. Boy, I hate change. Now I'm really beginning. I'm sounding like an old man, Kevin. I don't like change. What the heck? Get me out of this
Same
rut.
here. Same here. Yep.
Get me out of this rut. I don't want to be an old man. There's a lot to do out there. I guess it's my message on this. There's a lot to do out there. And I think what stops most people from doing it is not the desire to do it or the ability to do it, it's the time to do it. And if for those of you like Kevin, you're, about half my age. If you're younger than I am, which is probably most of you, like I mentioned before, few people get to be my age. If you're younger than me and you're looking to do these things, the best thing I can tell you is try to make the time to do it. And I get that there's job obligations and family obligations and school obligations. And I get all that. Be creative. Try to get this stuff done when you're younger. Because I will tell you that as healthy as I am, and Kevin, one of the things I did this past year was lose a lot of weight and I feel a whole lot better, and I'm definitely in better shape for it. But as you get older, things just break down. My knees hurt a lot. My feet hurt a lot. My joints hurt a lot because I'm just getting older and the parts are wearing out, and they didn't come with a lifetime warranty. So if I want to get new knees and new hips or whatever the heck else I'm going to need, I'm going to have to pay through the nose for it, plus rehab time. And you can ask my poor dog about knees that go out and stuff like that, and surgery and things. So my best message is don't keep thinking you'll get it done at another date. Do that stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get done what you can. And Kevin, I know you're embracing that and you're getting a lot of stuff done, but for other people out there. And, do what you can when you can. Just because I can't do, or it's harder for me to do some of the longer things or harder things, doesn't mean that I still don't go out and do something. I mean, that's the other thing. Just don't let it make you stop altogether. Just keep doing stuff.
That's solid advice there.
So, Kevin, what other stuff that you think maybe looking a little further down the year? Do you have any wish list stuff that if you could do it, maybe it's not on your plans for this year, but maybe it's like what's the word I'm trying to look for here?
A bucket list?
Bucket list. That's the word I'm looking
Okay.
for. Boy, now I know why I have you here too, besides everything else. Besides all the other good stuff, you remind me of stuff my old brain is forgetting. What bucket list stuff? If you had a bucket list thing you could do this year, I kind of talked about going to New Zealand. A bucket list thing that you could squeeze it in this year, what would be the one thing you would try to do?
Oh man, so a more attainable one is to go to Glacier National Park, and I definitely want to make it a double trip where I hop over into Canada and go to Banff. That's been a dream trip for many years. I have another one where I want to go backpacking in the Wind River Range. I've seen photos of friends who have been out there. It looks gorgeous. I want to see more of California, but for more ambitious stuff, there's beautiful hiking in China that I want to do really bad. And in parts of Europe, like in the Alps, there's a town in Austria in the Austrian Alps that is called Westendorf. So I want to go out there.
Oh, you got to go there. Get a picture next to
Oh,
a street sign or something.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I just for the more ambitious stuff, yeah, I just want to do more outdoor stuff around the world.
You know what you need to do when you go to Westendorf? You need to pack a set of tools. And I'm not saying that I endorse vandalism, but if you came home with a street sign that said Westendorf in your luggage, it would look cool hanging up on you.
How did that get in there?
I don't know. Sorry for the TSA people listening. I'm just kidding. For customs, I'm just kidding. But that's way cool. That'd be an awesome thing to do. There's a good bucket list for you. Go visit the town that's got the same name as you. That'd be a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
That'd be a great bucket list thing to do.
And it's a really cute ski resort town, so it looks like Aspen.
Cool. So would you want to go there in the winter and go skiing, or do you want to go there in the summer and maybe hike the Alps?
I think in the summer because like skiing is just it's so expensive. So
Even there it is, huh? Not
yeah.
just an American thing for skiing to be stupid expensive. You know, for ski resorts that rent their land from the federal government, U.S. Forest Service property, you'd think it wouldn't be so damned expensive to go up there. But one reason why I'm not a skier. I do have an invitation to do some cross-country skiing, and that may end up actually
cool.
being a podcast coming up in the next month or so when we get enough snow. But I do have an invitation if somebody wants to take me out cross-country skiing and do a little podcast about it. So that may be something coming up, a little teaser. That's not the big changes I'm talking about. It's just a guess. Anyway, Kevin, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have an update, a year-end update from 23 from the City of Colorado Springs Parks Department. We're going to have a year-end update from the El Paso County Parks Department. We do those things every year. The directors of both those departments have agreed to do podcasts. They're scheduled. They're ready to go. Those things are coming up here. We're going to have an interview with some people from Fremont County. And if people don't know, Fremont County over the last couple of years has really been building a pretty robust trail system down there. They have taken the recreation bull by the horns. I'm actually going to go down there. I'm not going to do that on Zoom. I'm going to travel down to Canyon City. We're going to do a podcast down there, and we're going to talk to the people down there. That's already scheduled in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of really good things. If they don't happen, it's because something went wrong with the schedule, but they're on the schedule. They're in my calendar. They've agreed to do it. They're anxious to do it. They're willing to do it. They're going to happen unless, the world stops. They're all going to happen. So those are good things that we're looking forward to this year. Some really good podcasts. I've got some other stuff that's in the works, not scheduled yet, so I don't want to get too deep into that, but there's some exciting new things happening with the U.S. Forest Service, some new outreach stuff happening there. I want to talk to them. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up in the next few weeks. And then, like I mentioned earlier, some bigger changes coming up later on in the year. Things are definitely going to look different on this podcast later on this year. And I'm not sure what. Maybe it's going to be the Outdoors with Hiking Kevin, Outdoors with Wild Westendorf, Outdoors with Hiking Wild Kevin Westendorf podcast. I don't know. It's going to be something different, but that's going to happen here. If I had a bucket list thing, one would be New Zealand, because I would love to go to New Zealand. It is god awful expensive to travel out there, though.
I bet.
The other place I want to go to is the Easter Islands, and there's another place that's way expensive to get out to. But I would love to go out there. I'd love to go out there and catch the Milky Way, some pictures of the Milky Way over the statues out there. I mean, you probably only spend a few days out there before you've seen everything, but I would love to go out there too. Big bucket list, not going to happen in 24. Like I mentioned earlier, my little fund of money that has to be built up before I can take a trip like that. But that's going to be my big bucket list things sometime, maybe, sort of, in the future. I don't know. We'll see. Kevin, anything else you want to talk about on this podcast? We're kind of running on the clock here. I don't want to rush you at all, but what else you got? Anything else you got coming up? Anything else you're doing soon?
Nope. I tend to slow down a bit in the wintertime. But I want to make it a goal of mine to break that habit and just make myself move regardless if it unless if it's dangerously cold outside, like with dangerous winds and such. Because every winter it's so easy for me to be like, well, it's pretty cold out. Like I have the gear for it and stuff. Like I'm fine. I'm not sure if it's because I'm from Vegas, but I can't stand the cold.
You've got snowshoes. You can go snowshoeing.
Yeah.
We'll go snowshoeing together. I've got a couple pairs of snowshoes. I know you got a pair of snowshoes. We'll grab a couple people and go snowshoeing. If we get 8 inches of snow. That's the other thing. You need snow. Or we can just drive someplace where there is snow. Staunton State Park likes to talk about all the snow they get up there. Maybe we'll drive up to Staunton State Park. You and I have been there too. I believe you've been up there with me, right?
I have not. No.
I've been there with some other people, but I haven't been there with you. You need to go. We need to go. We'll grab our snowshoes and we'll go snowshoeing up there.
That works.
Try to do that in the next month or so before everything, melts, turns to mud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do all that kind of stuff. Well, Kevin, thank you for spending the last year with me again on this podcast. I really appreciate it. I know you're going to be here for this year. And like I said, when things change a little bit, we'll see what happens. But I definitely know that in the second half of the year, this podcast is going to look different than it does the first half of the year. We'll just see what it looks like. But in any case, Kevin, thanks for being here again with me on this podcast and celebrating a new year and getting started again. I really appreciate it. You've been here a long time. since what did I say it was? The 9th podcast.
Yep.
You've been here for most of them, except when I've had interviews. And you've saved me from doing this on my own, which is good. All right, Kevin, I think with that, we'll just say goodbye to everybody. We'll see everybody next week.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. We'll talk to you next time.